So they've actually gone to a great deal of effort with FedEx, and I don't know who else they were using, but they're shipping these things constantly, trying to get all of the artists to draw their character and pass it on to the next person so that they can draw their character and finish it up. And that's just been, the storyline's been all right so far, but what I really read it for is just the fact that
the phenomenon of it.
Yeah, just
these are big name guys who are cooperating on this, and just the effort of rallying them all together must have been.
Yeah, I don't know that it's something that's ever been done with multiple artists working, literally on the same page. If there are 3 characters on that page, they were each drawn by the respective artist. No, photoshopping in or anything like that. They just send them the page.
Wow.
They draw it along with, everyone else's drawings. So it's amazing.
Wow. So I want to skip ahead a little bit. And what I planned, we're like deep in our comics mode here. So let's talk about your favorite comics right now. I know it's kind of picking, one out of probably 10 or more that you love. Give me the 1 or maybe 2 that you really love the most.
You want me to go first?
You go ahead.
All right.
I'm sitting over here
into the dark.
Go ahead.
It's funny because when I first got into comics, I thought, you follow these titles, and if you read Batman, you read Batman forever. And then as I sort of matured in my understanding of what comics are like, I realized that what I really want to do is follow authors. So I have some writers that are my favorite and artists that are my favorite, and I try to pick up the stuff they do, and I just follow them sort of as they leap from title to title.
Okay.
Greg Rucka is one of my favorite writers. He's a novelist and a comic writer, and he's currently working on Detective Comics, where he's got storylines going about Batwoman and The Question, who are among my favorite characters. Gail Simone is one of the women working in comics, and she's currently writing Wonder Woman, which is fantastic. And I know that a lot of your readership is interested in science fiction, and for that you really can't go wrong with Mike Mignola's stuff on Hellboy and BPRD. BPRD always has a miniseries coming out, and they're always beautifully drawn and fantastically written. So that's just some of the highest quality stuff in comics.
Cool. What about you, Zach? What's tickling your fancy right now?
Oh, wow. Let's see.
Just 1 or 2 now.
1 or 2.
You can go down the list if you really need to. I won't do that to you.
No, I mean, it's just I try and read a little bit of everything. I mean, there are titles that really stick out to me, like Secret Six from DC Comics, Detective Comics I also read. I try and diversify with some Marvel stuff. Reading New Avengers has been pretty good. Mighty Avengers, I mean, there's just so much out there. Vertigo's, kind of part of DC, but they've got a different flavor, and Madame Xanadu and The Unwritten have both been really, off the main path for readers, and those have been enjoyable. The Dark Horse stuff, I mean, so many that I love. It's hard to narrow it down to 2. I'm sure Mark would say the same.
Well, at least it wasn't the full 300 on the racks.
No.
So that's not
I
too
can't
bad.
actually attest to liking every single comic that's on the racks, but definitely a large portion of them.
There's something for everybody.
And then there are some that are just, fun to poke fun at.
Well, we'll be nice today.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe once we get the mics.
I'm not naming names.
Let's get the mics turned off, then we can talk about that. So let's step back into the gaming real quick. Well, one last thing on comics. Not only do you have all the comics, but you've got all the gear that you need for the serious collector. I mean, when I walked through last time, I took pictures of all these. You got some saws and magnifying glasses and tweezers. I'm like, boy, this is like a sociopath's paradise in one way, but also you got this whole kit of, if you're a collector, you don't have to go anywhere else. You can just come here, get your supplies, get your stuff, and just bag to bag, and that's what you want to do.
There are so many of those hobby tools that you don't know you need until you see them, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my god, that's what I've always wanted. We have something called a helping hands with magnifier, and
Yep.
it's a magnifying glass with 2 little pincher arms. And you think, well, what is that for? Until you're painting something really small, and then you're like, what I need is something that'll clamp it down, and then a magnifying glass. And there's stuff like that where people come in and say, oh, that's going to make my life so much better. So.
All right. Well, that's much better than the American Psycho version that I was thinking of when I saw all those tools. So
you need larger versions for that.
You should know that. Okay. Let's go back to the games side. we talked about Magic the Gathering, of course, kind of the long-standing juggernaut. Warhammer, D&D miniatures, the White Wolf rule books, D&D rule books that are in here. The board game section you talked about. Let me just stop right here, because the one that kind of came to my interest really lately is Munchkin Quest, which isn't the hardcore people think, oh, what's this fluffy little non-RPG game? But it was a game I could just pick up and play. Mm-hmm. And is that something that you've seen people come in here and play on your open nights? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Munchkin Quest gets some play.
Mm-hmm.
Munchkin, in general, does really well, and all the Munchkin Quest is really is a board game version of Munchkin.
Mm-hmm. Steve Jackson game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great game because all the cards are jokes, right?
Yep.
So it's
you must
funny.
face the gazebo alone.
Yes, and it's funny at the same time. It's entertaining, and it does not have a high learning curve, so people can throw it on and play it basically anytime.
But Steve Jackson, who produces all of the Munchkin games, has also come out with a few that are more strategy oriented. Like they came out with Revolution last year, which is all about trying to get presence in certain areas on the board and trying to have the most points at the end of the game, which you can do by capturing certain slots to bid on. There's certain things like if you bid on a captain, you get presence in the port, but you also get a certain number of points, and you get a new tool to use in your bidding for different slots. And that's been a really fun game that I've played, also from Steve Jackson. And they also came out with a Stars Are Right, is what the name of it is, and that's a strategy matching type game. You have cards in your hand with different symbols on them, and on the board you have the night sky, and they're all little squares that are movable, and you can even flip them over. They've got stuff on the other side, and your goal is to use the cards that can also do things to the board to change it and get out your bigger cards that are worth points. And the symbols at the bottom have to be what you have on the board in order to lay it down on the table and make it count for points. So
it's just a cool time to be a little bit into gaming because there's so much variety. You got a few different companies really coming up with original ideas. It's like the floodgates have lifted, and all of a sudden every year we're getting something kind of pretty interesting and unique takes. And
yeah, I mean, Dominion, when it came out, that was like...
We were just talking on Monday night. I was talking to a couple of the gamers in here. We were playing some board games, and one of our gamers, George, he said, well, you guys opened at just the right time because this has been the most exciting 6 years in board games that I've ever seen. And it's true because, like Zach said, this card game Dominion just came out last year, and we are all playing it obsessively still. Like, it's been out for a year now, and we can't put it down, which is just incredible. And Ticket to Ride's been in the last 6 years. I mean, there have just been... I feel like Settlers of Catan, which everybody now knows and loves, sort of opened the floodgates and said that board games, even for your family, don't have to end at Monopoly and Risk. That you can introduce these games that have complex mechanics and require a lot of attention and concentration and strategy, and people will play them. People want this, and so it just blew the market wide open. You've got just in the last year or so, Agricola, which is all about subsistence farming, but is somehow still a lot of fun, and Pandemic, which is about global pandemic and still a lot of fun. You've had the sort of discovery of cooperative board games where you're playing against the board with other players, like Arkham Horror and Shadows over Camelot and stuff like that. So, I almost think that the board games are one of the most exciting sections in the store just because there's so many companies doing so many incredible things right now.
Well, probably the most exciting thing that happened to your games section was a few months ago, Robin Williams came by, and I'm sure you've had fun talking about that. I enjoy seeing that picture on the rack.
We'd have more fun talking about it if we were actually here at the time.
I know. I heard it was just it's the regular staff. They got to meet him. Take pictures.
Mark and Jennifer were on their way driving back. I think they were about 45 minutes out.
We were at a convention in Baltimore.
And then I was actually just at home, so I was maybe 20 minutes away, but nobody called.
Get in here. You won't believe who's here.
Everybody who was here said that he was a very good sport.
Cool. Yeah, the next day, actually, people were like, yeah, so guess who was here last night? Robin Williams.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh. Right.
I
didn't believe anyone.
It had the seed of credibility, though, because he used to stop by Cerebral Hobbies in Chapel Hill.
Okay.
So.
But I didn't believe anybody until they actually brought over pictures, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. he actually was here. So, wow, tell me all about it.
Yeah, maybe sometime you can get him to come back and GM a fun event. You're
Yeah,
right.
actually, yeah, seriously, he is apparently a Warhammer player. Plays 40K, picked up some Eldar, and a couple of comic books. So maybe he's just a big geek. We like
which
to
is
think
good.
so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think he checked out Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which also
is
fantastic.
Mhm.
Don't miss it.
good series. It comes out in mini-series allotments. They're out with 2 right now.
Yeah, they
Dallas and what was the first one called?
Apocalypse Suite.
Apocalypse Suite. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next installment will be.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to change gears entirely for a moment.
We
and
do that to you constantly.
I know.
So.
And I'm going to go back to what you talked about earlier, how you're doing the software for everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's my favorite
I
topic.
know. So yes, I'm a software engineer too, so it works out because they're a great online store with all the management features, and they also have like the bricks and mortar online store, the /store,
Right.
with the events calendar. And the thing I really want to talk about, which is kind of funny to me, was I took a peek at the forums. I don't do too many forums, but I saw the Magic the Gathering forum just had a 21,000th post. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just insane.
It is insane, and it's a moderation nightmare too, because these guys can post 100 times in an hour just like that without even thinking about it. And we can come in the morning and check the forums and everything's fine, and then an hour later at 10 o'clock, like the internet kind of ripped in half over something.
Oh.
But I mean, those guys are some of my favorite customers because they are so devoted and so dedicated, and they feel so strongly about everything that they want to post about it. At one point, they had a contest with the 40K forums to see who could post the most in a given time period, who would get to some post number first. And they were all going and sabotaging each other, and there was a big back and forth war on the forums. And I think the forums are great because you can go on like any internet forum and talk about Magic the Gathering with whoever, but the fact that you can come here and do it with people you're going to see on Friday night and
Little
over the
trash
weekend.
talk.
Yeah, there's a little trash talk, and there's a lot of discussion about, okay, well, this card's coming up. Do we think it's garbage? Do we think it's good? And I feel like being able to do that with people instead of just strangers on the internet is a real value add.
Cool.
The Magic Forum. Always a fun topic.
All right. So your Magic's been around a while, and I'm guessing that's not what got you into things in the first place. But it could be. So let's talk about what got you into sci-fi and comics and gaming in the first place. What were those first stories and games which kind of drew you in? So let's start with Zach this time. Give him a chance.
Oh. Wow. I guess when I was a kid, it was video games. And then I kind of got into surfing forums. And there was some groups that I would do forum roleplay with. Although I had no idea what the terms were or anything like that at the time. And then I kind of got out of it and continued my video gaming trend. And as I got older, I was introduced to anime because I had been watching cartoons as a kid growing up. And anime was like the next big thing. And what initially got me was a show called Yu-Gi-Oh! Oddly enough.
Never heard of it.
No, really? It's one of the biggest anime CCGs. But this was after the Pokemon craze, I think. And I was like, that's really cool. And I wish I could play cards like that. Da-da-da-da-da.
And where the dragons come to life. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm curious. I'm going to, hit up Google because Google was a new thing back then. And it's like, Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, da-da-da, starter deck. And I'm like, I must have this. So it began. Years of playing TCGs, and I'm still playing a TCG now, although it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! It's called Legend of the Five Rings, which is Oriental-based. And it's got samurai, and it's got cavalry, and shugenja, which are basically magic users and magicians.
They're ninjas.
It's and they're scorpion. I mean, we're friends, really. But it's just a lot of fun, and as I got more into the card gaming scene and more into the show Yu-Gi-Oh!, I also got into anime that way, and got to watch things like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon,